Hey everyone, it's Ryan from IQ Bow Sights here to talk to you about the IQ Define range finding sight. The range finding sight, packed full of features. The purpose of this video is to talk you start to finish from your purchase through opening it, making sure you have all the appropriate hardware set up, mounting, then set up, and then how this will function for you. So first things first, you purchased your bow sight, congratulations. And now getting into it, as we open this up, have your cover, and then once you flip it upside down, you'll slide off this sleeve, and underneath you'll find quite a few objects. You'll have your target here, and you'll use this target in order to zero in your range finding sight so that your visible laser and your 20-yard pin are in the same location. You have your instructions. Make sure you read these because this will talk you start to finish. If you don't pick something up in the video, then this will give you the finite details of it. You have your trigger assembly, your mounting hardware, your Allen keys, and then you have your attachment means to attach your trigger to your riser. So first things first, we're going to grab the Allen key and we're going to get this sight out of the packaging. So attach with fasteners on the back side, some socket head cap screws. And then once we get these off, we'll just set these off to the side because we won't need these while we're mounting the sight. Ooh. So now we have the sight. So first things first, once you get the sight out of the packaging, there is the battery cover back here. On the battery cover, you'll open this up and you'll remove the insulator that protects the battery from turning on or being engaged while shipping. So you'll unscrew this, you'll take off that insulating cap, and then you'll just screw this back on. We'll do the same thing under here. Under the battery supply, this is the battery supply, and you'll open this up. Again, you'll take the insulator off, and then you'll screw this back down. So once you do that, check to make sure everything's operational. Button on the bottom of it turns on the red laser. You can see that there's now a visible laser projected. That's critical during the setup of your sight. Additionally, there's a port on the bottom of it. This port and the trigger, as you plug this in, engaging the trigger one time, that'll show that you have illumination on your range finding sight. So just to make sure that everything is functional and correct. Hold the trigger down to turn it off, and then we'll start the mounting process. So in your fasteners to mount it, you have two different types of fasteners. You have a socket head cap screw, you have a lock washer, and then you have a washer. So socket head cap screw, put your lock washer on, put your washer on, and then set that down. Additionally, you have another fastener. Clearly it is different, flat top. So when we're mounting the sight to the bow, this one goes in the top mounting hole. The socket head goes in the bottom mounting hole. This is absolutely critical during your setup phase as you have to adjust the orientation of your sight. This will allow you to do the pivot motion. So we'll set these down, find the appropriate Allen key. Good to go for the top. Good to go for the bottom. So taking your riser, obviously you have your sight mounting holes. And as we do it, we'll go through. And again, this one goes on the top. Good feature to take a look at, as you can see that this has a a shape to it. It matches the concave to the upper mounting portion. So as we do it, we'll get it aligned, and then we'll start to mount it. Just mount it enough so that it's hand snug. And then we'll do the same thing on the bottom. As we do the bottom, again, make sure that you have your washer and your lock in there, your lock washer. And again, snug. So the purpose of this is that as you go through the setup of the sight, you'll have to make some adjustments to be able to adjust the pitch of the projected laser itself so that it gets in line, so that when you're at draw and you've used your 20-yard pin to sight in, then you'll be able to walk the laser onto the target, so they're using the provided target, so it'll give you the correct orientation between your 20-yard pin and your projected laser. So again, like I said, snug, not tight. Understand where you want to mount your trigger assembly. Generally speaking, the front of the riser is probably the best place to do it. So when you're at draw, you can engage the trigger. So taking your Velcro tape, we'll take one of the sides and we'll adhere it to the front of the riser. Taking the other side of it, you'll be able to use the mating side, and we'll put that mating side on the back side of the trigger assembly. In the packaging, there's an additional means to adhere the trigger to your bow, which is two-sided tape. That two-sided tape is for if you put it on and don't plan on taking it back off for the trigger assembly. So if you don't want Velcro, you don't have to use Velcro, you can use a two-sided tape as your option. So taking this, attaching, so then you'll go back through. Generally what we like to do is just wrap it around once, just so it stays up and out of the way, and then you'll plug it into the port. You know, how you choose to wrap this, your means of doing it, is totally up to your preference and how you want your setup to be. So now that we have it mounted, making sure that you'll use pressure to push it down, and what that'll do is that'll pivot it. So the first step in the setup portion, now that we have this mounted, the first step in the setup portion is that you're gonna take your fasteners and you're gonna cinch them down. So as we cinch them down, that's just so that there's no movement under shot. We'll get this nice and snug, and then you'll go through just like any standard sight setup portion. So what you'll do is, at draw, you shoot at 20 yards, you use your top pin to use as your 20-yard pin, obviously. And then you'll use these tool-free windage and elevation adjusters, and you'll be able to, standard sight setup, you'll follow your arrow. So if your arrow's shooting high, you'll click and you'll take your sight up. If you're shooting to the right, you'll move your sight to the right. Once you get your 20-yard pin dialed in for your setup, make sure that you lock these back down. And then you'll go through and you'll turn your visible laser on. So we engage our visible laser. And I'm gonna set this down for a second so I can open up the target, so I can talk to you a little bit about the target. So the target, or the sight-in paper, clearly it shows here that you have your 20-yard pin and then you have your projected laser. So the distance between the center of this and the center of this is also the same distance roughly between your 20-yard pin and your projected laser. So at 20 yards, what you want to see is your 20-yard pin centered here, and you want to see your projected laser that is hitting this surface here. So go down at 20 yards, hang your target, and then we'll start the actual sight-in process. Once you have your 20-yard pin done, which is what you've done, now you've hung your target, you're gonna start going through and you're gonna look at where your laser is projected in relation to you holding your 20-yard pin on the 20-yard pin target. And so if the laser is left or if the laser is right, first things that we have to do, there are 2 set screws on the side of the sight. And these 2 set screws allow you to pivot the bow sight, which will walk your laser either left or right to get it in line so that it is in a vertical line with your 20-yard pin. So using the appropriate, I think it's this one. Nope. Oh dear. There we go. So because it's a pivot pin, so as you loosen the pin one way, it allows you to drive this pin in and you'll start pivoting the sight. So left, right, and that's the process. And you'll continue to do it. So each time that you make an adjustment, what you need to do is knock an arrow in a safe direction at your 20-yard target, draw your bow, and then once you draw your bow, you'll look at your 20-yard pin, and then you'll look at where your laser is in reference to that. This will probably take a couple iterations depending on the adjustments that you're making, but that's to make sure that, again, that your laser, your projected laser, is in line with your vertical pins. Once you've done that, you'll go back and you'll loosen up the set screws on the side. So as you loosen this up, you'll loosen this up just enough so that you can get some movement in the sight. And so that movement is there. This one is tight enough so that it still provides some resistance, so that little change won't be a gross change at 20 yards. On the back of the sight, there is a set screw in the back. And so this set screw here is to be able to micro adjust your vertical. And so again, as with your left and right, the goal is to get the 20-yard pin on the target and your projected laser so that your projected laser is here. Now, if your 20-yard pin is here and your projected laser is, above it, obviously that you're going to have to make the adjustment in order to pull that sight down. And so pulling the sight down, it'll allow you to, it'll allow you to elevate this down or position this so that the laser comes down. And then what you want to do is each time you do that, you want to take this set screw and you just want to walk it up to the back of the fastener, because what that does is that provides some resistance. And then you'll take this, you'll snug it down, you'll go to draw, and then you'll look at where your laser is, your projected laser is in reference to your 20-yard pin. And you'll go through that process as well. And you'll do that a couple iterations. And ultimately the goal is to get your 20-yard pin into the black dot and then your projected laser into the open face circle. And that will let you know that where your pin is where your laser rangefinder and your visible laser are pointing. Once you've done this process, you're going to have to go back in and shoot a couple arrows to make sure that your 20-yard pin, those adjustments that we made, make sure that your 20-yard pin is still the impact of your arrow and where your 20-yard pin are together. And so it may require a little bit of windage and elevation adjustment. Once you make that windage and elevation adjustment, just draw again, check that your visible laser is still in line with this sight-in paper. Now that we have that, ultimately we're ready to shoot. So the way that the sight works by activation of the trigger. And so one click on the trigger will turn the sight into standby mode. And you'll be able to tell that it's in standby mode because there's no arrow on the bottom of the OLED screen. And so when you make a second click, now once that second click is on and you see that that arrow is showing you that the laser rangefinder is now in scan mode. And so it will stay in scan mode for 2 minutes without turning off. At 2 minutes, it will auto back down into standby mode. And we just did that in the terms of functionality so that there's some battery conservation. So you don't leave it on all day, your trophy buck comes out and lo and behold, you don't have a range finding function. So if you hold the trigger down, it will shut the sight back down. So other features on it, there is a sight light button on the side of it. There are 4 levels of brightness. So press it once, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 is back off. It goes from low to high. So as you go through, if you're in a blind, super dark, something, you know, right at end of shooting light and you need a little bit of pin help, that will allow you to do so. The other feature about this is that the visible laser is removable. And so there are set screws on the bottom of it. And so once you're done with the sight-in process, you have the ability to take off the visible laser. There are absolutely states that do not allow you to hunt with a projected laser, so make sure that you check your local game laws. And now your visible laser is off. So now you have a ready to hunt IQ defined sight. There are other features to it. There is 2nd and 3rd axis adjustment. So as you look here, there is some laser marks here, and that will allow you to do your 2nd axis adjustment. Additionally, the level, you can pitch the level so that with this fastener up front, and that will allow you to get your 3rd axis adjustment in line. There are quiver mounting holes here so that you can mount your quiver to your bow sight itself. So a lot of features packed into the IQ Define. It weighs in at just over 18 ounces. It is 5-pin sight, fully contained fibers so that you're not going to go through getting on your way to your stand or whatever. You have 19 thousandths fibers as well, and then you have a clear poly top to allow the maximum amount of light to illuminate your pins without the aid of the light. Retails for $349.99. For more information, it can be found at www.iqbowsights.com.